The ceasefire is now in effect with the first hostages set to return home later today, and Israel built the bunker under Shifa Hospital. We'll get into that. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm recording this at 7 a.m. Central on Friday, November 24th, 2023. Overnight, Israel did not release any additional names of their fallen in the past 24 hours. The Gaza Health Ministry updated their casualty statistics, saying that 14,853 Palestinians have been killed, including 6,150 children, with more than 36,000 wounded since October 7th in Gaza. Now, quick note, that information is at the very least vetted by Hamas before it is released to the public. Now, leading up to the ceasefire, which is now in effect, Israel continued clearing operations across northern Gaza, identifying and destroying more tunnel entrances, and recovering multiple RPGs, AK-47s, mortars, rocket launchers, and explosive devices. Additionally, the IDF says that during these operations, they were able to locate and kill Ammar Abu Jalala, the commander of Hamas's naval forces in the Khan Yunis area. On the Hamas side, they say that over the past 72 hours, their forces have been able to completely or partially destroy 33 Israeli vehicles. So the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is now in effect, and it's set to be 4 days long with no fighting, while 50 hostages held by Hamas are released in exchange for 150 Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. During this time, during the next 4 days, aid trucks will continue to flow into Gaza, and civilians will be able to evacuate to the south. The IDF said that they have completed preparations for the release of hostages dubbed Heaven's Door. Emmanuel Fabian has done some really impressive reporting on this war, and the following is his report that he published on Twitter. He says, once released from the Gaza Strip via Egypt, the hostages will be brought by the IDF to the Hatzarim Air Base in southern Israel for an initial reception, where they will undergo a short physical and mental checkup. The military has prepared psychologists and mental health experts to greet the hostages, many of whom are children. The experts will explain to them what happened in their community on October 7th when they believe the time is right. The IDF has brought the hostages' phones so they can call their relatives immediately upon arriving at Hatzarim. The released hostages will remain for up to 2 hours at Hatzarim before being taken to a hospital either by helicopter or minibus. The helicopters will be flying in a more comfortable and quiet mode. Those who need immediate medical attention will be taken straight from the border to a hospital without going to Hatzarim. The families of the hostages are waiting at the hospitals, and hotel rooms have been reserved in the area. Schneider Children's Hospital has recommended that the hostages remain at least 48 hours under observation before being released home. The same process will be carried out for the next 4 days for the rest of the hostages who will be released from Hamas captivity. The IDF in a statement asks the public to show patience and sensitivity and respect the privacy of released hostages and their families, and to not circulate unverified information. Now, there's a piece in Politico a few days ago talking about a possible downside of the ceasefire. It's not about Hamas regrouping, but that the destruction of Gaza would be on full display. The article said, quote, and there was some concern in the administration that an unintended consequence of the pause, that it would allow journalists broader access to Gaza and the opportunity to further illustrate the devastation there and turn public opinion on Israel, end quote. So I'm going to play some of the footage here that's come out already from Palestinian journalists on the ground. So first off, when looking at this Politico piece, an unnamed official. So you got to keep that in mind. It's an anonymous source, essentially. But when you're looking at the information aspect of this, or really any war, a strategy that banks on people not finding out the level of destruction that's taking place, that's just a recipe for failure, right? I mean, it's got to be the other way around. You got to expect that people are going to see what's happening, and I'd even argue, get ahead of it. Put that information out early so there's no room for speculation about what's being withheld. On that note, we are starting to see reports that Palestinians are moving back towards their homes in northern Gaza. It doesn't sound like these are folks who had evacuated south and are now moving through those military checkpoints in the opposite direction. I don't think Israel's allowing that at this point. They're not allowing people to come back in to the besieged Gaza City. Instead, these are people who fled their homes in the north for shelters, still in the north of Gaza City. And for many of them, this is their first time going home in weeks, and they're seeing now, for the first time with their own eyes, what remains, or more appropriately, what does not remain of their homes, their neighborhood, and their cities. There's not a lot left in some of these areas. Have you heard some of the debates going around recently around how Israel built these Hamas tunnels? So big picture, I think this is kind of a straw man argument, but I'll play the clip here of former Israeli Prime Minister Barak talking about that on CNN.
Can I just start by asking you what is your view of whether your government, your military, has done a good enough job of proving their claim that there was a major command center and bunker under Al-Shifa?
It's already known for many years that they have in the bunkers that originally was built by Israeli constructors underneath Shifa were used as a command post of the Hamas and a kind of a junction of several tunnels, part of the system. I don't know to say to what extent it is a major. It's probably not the only kind of command post. Several others are under other hospitals or in other sensitive places, but it's for sure had been used by Hamas even during this conflict.
Well, when you say it was built by Israeli engineers, did you misspeak?
No, decades ago we were running the place. So we held them. It was many decades ago, probably 4 decades ago, that we helped them to build these bunkers in order to enable more space for the operation of the hospital within the very limited size of this compound.
Okay. All right. Well, that's sort of thrown me a little bit.
So the reason I threw out the straw man argument here is that arguing who built a bunker under the Shifa hospital doesn't really address Hamas's use of a hospital to shield their military activities, which is the original IDF claim. And a couple more points to add here. So Hamas builds tunnels. They have for a long time. They brag about it and they show it in their media. So to be clear, even if Israel helped to build one of these or an area under Shifa hospital, it doesn't mean that they built every tunnel network under Gaza. Far from it. The majority of the tunnels in and around Gaza were built by Hamas. So Israel's contentious claim here is not that Hamas built tunnels, right? That's not what they're upset with Hamas about, building tunnels, or even that they built tunnels underneath the hospital. It's that they're using a protected structure, in this case, the Shifa hospital, to shield their military activities, which is a violation of international humanitarian law. So who built that bunker doesn't really matter, if we're being honest. It's how that facility is being used. The other side of this is that some will point to this as a reason to call into question everything that has been put out by the Israeli government here and into the future, which, look, it's fair. You should be skeptical of any information coming from a warring party in the middle of a conflict, and Israel's no different. This feels like, to me, a mistake that we have made all too often here in the United States, where had Israel put this information out early on, it wouldn't have even been a story. It just would have been a little footnote to the overall claim of Hamas using Shifa to hide their military activities. But the fact that it looks like it slipped out on accident mid-interview makes it look like Israel's trying to hide something. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in national security subjects, be sure to check out the sit reps I put out on Substack. Link is in the description below. Substack now also has ad-free, sponsor-free videos published about 1 hour before they go live on YouTube. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.